We are live on Real Change, which is on Facebook. We are live on YouTube, a couple of groups. We have a bit of an echo on the other side, so we're trying to figure that out. But I'm going to go ahead and do the countdown, and we shall be ready to go. So here's the countdown. Hello, Pink. All right. So, I love Karyn Smith, except for the fact that she lives in Hawaii. I think that should just not be allowed, in my personal opinion, because it is starting to be cold here, and it stays year round in Hawaii around 70 degrees, tropical. My goodness, I'm just so jealous. But tonight I have my sister from another mister, no other, like a mother from side. I don't know how you say it. But anyway, this is Karyn Smith. Karyn Smith is a woman and a survivor, an advocate, a life coach. I met her on Clubhouse. Her knowledge base when it comes to cluster B personality disorders is bar none. Thank you, Shirley, for being here. Thank you, Love Noof. Hey, Lolita Washington. Thanks, everyone on TikTok for joining. So I'm going to start with the same question that I always start with, Karyn. Welcome to Love Over Coffee. Voices now heard. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you've been, and tell us where you're going. And before you speak, do you still have me on Bluetooth, or do you have TikTok?
No, I took the Bluetooth off.
Do you have TikTok on?
No, I am strictly on StreamYard. Nothing else is on. No devices.
Okay. All right. So here we go. All right. So tell us who you are, tell us where you've been, and tell us where you're going. Good evening, Pat.
Aloha, my sisters, Pat and Shirley, and everyone else there. My name is Karyn Smith, and this is a celebratory time because in the past 2 weeks, I changed my legal ID, social securities, debit, credit cards, all of that. And the final thing was my lease just a couple of days ago. So I am legally Karyn, Karyn Smith. Where I've been was minding my own business and ran into the imposter. And that's what they all are. Fake personalities in 1987. Went through all kinds of changes from the knight in shining armor to the I was abused child, the victimization that they play. And of course, you want to help. You want to make life better. You want to be the stability. And of course, those of you who have been through narcissistic abuse or any kind of physical abuse, everyone is not a narcissist, but I will say any abuser, any man or woman that puts their hands physically on another person is not only a coward, but they've got narcissistic traits because they're thinking only of themselves. I woke up in 2019. I met him in 1987, married in 1990, and went through every level. Physical abuse started. Because of my background, law enforcement, paramedics, martial arts, an end was put to the physical abuse because I realized, oh, you think you're going to make a habit of drinking and putting your hands on me and me not striking back. So I did. He wound up making the trips to the emergency room instead of me. So wisely, he learned to keep his hands off me. Also, certain malt liquors seemed to bring out the worst in him, so He had enough self-preservation to stop drinking those particular drinks. But the mental, the emotional, the psychological, the spiritual, the financial, the sexual abuse, all magnified tremendously. So many of us have the mistaken thought that because there's no physical abuse, we are not being abused. That is so not true. Mental and emotional abuse stays with you longer because of the fact that it's still playing in your mind. Their words are still playing in your mind. We ruminate. So one day, after having left 7 times, 7 different shelters for battered women I was in, it finally dawned on me, you're an abused woman. This is not good. But of course, the emotional, we don't know anything about narcissism at this point. The trauma bond is there. The fact that I'm old school, born in the 50s, raised with that point of view of the church doesn't like divorce, God doesn't like divorce, which is not true. When I finally read the Bible for myself in 2018, 19, Matthew 19 clearly said in the case of sexual immorality, it's time for divorce. And there's nothing more immoral sexually than a somatic narcissist. So, wake up time happened, and I'll kind of get into that in just a little bit. But I woke up, knew nothing about Google. I was still Internet Explorer, even though I had a phone with Gmail. I didn't know about looking up traits. My husband or my wife is acting this way or doing these things and getting the information. YouTube, I wasn't even doing thumbs up. I didn't know about that. I just would watch my old westerns and gospel music. Well, an event happened, and the very next day, I call it a divine download. Suddenly, a woman by the name of Petra Van Deel or DeGiel appeared in my feed, and I watched this video on NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and found myself going check, 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 all 9 traits. Later, I also found the traits for sociopath and psychopath, the new name being anti-personality disorder. That set me about 18, 20, 24 hours, a couple of 36-hour runs in 2020 watching YouTube. I spent all of my time learning. I started with the doctors and branched out from there. By May, I realized who I wanted to be my coach until she brought up the point, Dr. Carmen Bryant. Took the shame out of it for me because she was military. So, with my background in law enforcement and paramedics and co-owner of an executive protection company, when I saw she went through this, then I realized, okay, you're not stupid, you're not bad, you're not inferior. None of us are prepared for the fakes that we meet. None of us think that a person has this kind of evil about them, that they know in advance that they are not who they're pretending to be. They're mirroring, and that's who you fall in love with. So you spend the rest of your relationship on a hamster wheel trying to get back to that individual, only to realize in the end that person does not even exist. And when you see NPD, you realize they don't know anything. So that's where I was. That's where I've been. Now I've moved to the level in 2020 that I escaped, got rid of, barricaded the door, wouldn't allow them back in, and found my destiny helper, Helen Sadler, your destiny helper. That's who my life coach is. and set about on the healing pathway. And it is a process, it's going to go on. But now I've gone from a state of constant cognitive dissonance, depression, not bathing, not caring about myself, brain fog, sleep deprivation, which is intentional on their part. They like to start arguments late at night. They don't sleep well, so they make sure that you don't sleep well. And confused. But once I started learning about this and started drawing boundaries, even though this was a person that was potentially violent, because I knew him so well, 33 years was the mark that I wound up barricading the door. I knew he was a coward. So I drew my line. I insisted on certain things like, you will not keep raising your voice at me, because if you do, I will dial 911. We were living in a transitional living shelter, which was apartment buildings, old military. I said, at 10 o'clock, they want quiet in this building. That includes this apartment too. So drawing my boundaries, refusing to allow the toxicity, refusing to be baited into arguments. They love that, to get you into reactive abuse. I found my power, found myself, and began to remember who I was. But the real deal and the serious healing did not start until no contact was involved. So that I'm not listening to the voice, I'm not dealing with that person. So from survivor to thriver to warrior. I started my channel simply not to be a channel creator, but because it was in the middle of 2020. There were no psychiatrists available. BetterHelp was unknown to me at that time. So I started this as a verbal cathartic process. I saw a couple of other people showing incidents of narcissistic abuse between husband and wife or father and adult daughter. And I realized I'm going to talk into the phone too. Now, up until recently, I don't appear on camera. And that's a whole nother story. But that has changed since Helen Sadler, your Destiny Helper, had her conference last August here in Hawaii. Shirley Stalder was sweet enough to hold the camera, and I appeared for the first time on my channel, and it is now going to start happening. At first, because he was such a stalker, it was important just to do nature scenes so that he could not identify where I was. And I'm going to keep that. I mean, where I physically live is none of his business, but I am going to start appearing on camera. Thanks to Clubhouse, I have a whole new family of sisters and a few brothers that understand what I have been through. They know that I'm not crazy. They've been through it themselves. So we are support. And may I just, as I land this plane, those of you who finally figure out you're going through abuse, particularly narcissistic abuse, but any kind, very often there are issues that are rooted in childhood, and you really do need to educate yourself and at some point get a life coach. And in many of our cases, a therapist is needed, particularly when there's childhood issues, childhood inappropriate sexual touching, physical abuse. We can't, a brain surgeon does not try to operate on his own brain. So if something happens to him, he gets another surgeon to do the fixing. So many women I have dealt with, particularly on Clubhouse, listen to the videos, they feel stronger, they feel better, but they don't invest in themselves. They don't get a life coach, or they do for 2 or 3 sessions. They go out there, and before you know it, the trauma bond's back in effect. They think they can deal with the individual. Oh, I know what I'm doing now, and I'm not getting. They get their feelings hurt. They wind up in tears again. words are being said, the ruminating, all those things. So if not me, please find someone who can life coach you, and preferably someone who's been through it. Book knowledge is one thing, but actual experience is another. And get a therapist that is experienced in childhood trauma, domestic violence, and high conflict people. That is to say, the cluster B personality, because they put a special level of abuse on you that no one else does. So, Miss Tina, I'm going to land my plane right there.
Oh my goodness, and what a plane it is. I just want to go back to, and I know there's an echo, and I don't know why, don't know where it's coming from tonight, can't figure it out, so I apologize. Um, but I just want to say, did we date the same guy?
Yes, it seems like it. Um, that same guy or that same woman, um, God is the only one that's omnipresent everywhere at one time. But these narcissistic abusers are a close second. It's amazing that all over the world, similar activities, similar levels of abuse, even the words that are used against you. Um, this is how I wound up with Helen Sandler, your destiny helper, as my coach, because I started I started learning about the live chats and the comments that were going on the live videos. And then of course when people just watch videos that are not live, they were making comments. What caught my attention was how many people were making the same comments, reacting to the same things I was. The creators that I was listening to were in Washington State, T on NPD in California, Paula Narcon in Ireland, Dave of Narcology Inscripted in Tennessee. I don't know where Quinn Holiday, ASSC Direct. I don't know where Lynn Little Shaman, Chris Godinez in Arizona, Dr. Les Carter in Texas. These people are global. And people from Zimbabwe, New Zealand, Canada, Africa, United Kingdom, all over America were reacting to the same stimuli, talking about the same things being done to them and said to them. And this is where I came to the conclusion for myself, because I'm a believer, that this has to be demonic. This has to have a spiritual component, because how can this man that I'm married to, that is Caucasian, 6'3", in Hawaii, line up with the guy you dealt with all the way out there in Lexington, Kentucky, and the same using of women, financial abuse, lazy, but put you to work doing almost everything possible, and then turn around and say that you're lazy and you're not doing anything and you're a bad person and you're not helping the situation. How is this guy two places at once? 3, 5, 20? I
It is
mean,
amazing, isn't it?
it has to be spiritual. And that's why I wound up choosing Apostle Helen Sadler, because she can deal with the spiritual approach. Because face it, these people are servants of Satan for those of us who are believers. They are certainly not serving God.
And I found, hold on just one moment. I'm going to pause my live for just a moment. I'm going to see if something else is um, on my phone. So hold on one second.
Okay.
Are we back? Is it
I'm
better?
here.
Is it gone? I think it's gone.
Oh, good.
Is that
I,
better, Shirley? I don't know. I feel like I still hear something, but I'm not sure. So I know for me, you touched on it in the very beginning. I know that I kept thinking, I'm smart, I'm educated, I know what abuse is, I know how to get myself out of situations, and yet at the same time, um, I blamed myself more than I could understand what was happening. So how do we wrestle with those two things? And I'm gonna mute myself when Karen is talking so that you don't hear that background noise, which I don't know where it's coming from tonight, y'all. I just don't know. I don't know.
I had the same attitude. I was a gifted student selected out for passing IQ tests in the fourth grade. Throughout junior high school, I'm in special advanced placement classes. Same thing for high school. So even if the test is racially biased or culturally biased, I still passed it to the level that I knew back then my IQ was 130 or above. They wouldn't tell us the details because we were kids. Now I really don't care. But how is it? See, I was kicking myself, beating myself up. I don't do that anymore because number one, we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know that there were people out here who are capable of pretending and faking kindness and caring and uh, deeply interested in you. They put their whole focus on you. And of course, they've got the spirit of persuasion. And then they're mirroring you back to you. So you think you found your perfect partner. Now, often they catch us at a time of difficulty. I thought, wait a minute, I had a business. This person didn't catch me at a time of difficulty. But once I started learning about narcissism, I looked back, wait a minute, in 1987, when I met this person, I had spent 4 years staying with my father-in-law because he had prostate cancer. We were expecting that. And of course, I was literally there when he passed in the hospital, actually assisted the nurse disentangling all the tubes and things and cleaning up for his wife to see. But before he passed, the phone rings about 11 something at night. I only have one uncle out here in California, which is where we were. My mother had one brother, and the family, due to narcissistic individuals, were separated. We used to barbecue. We spent every Sunday at one another's house, mom, his house, my grandmother. Everything was together. We were musicians, so song fest. Long story short, his wife brought an end to that. I went by his house on the way to my parents' house for my sons to meet him. At that point, I only had two, and he announced we were going to have a barbecue for the first time in many, many years. I was all excited. My boys were going to get a chance to see what my childhood was like. That phone rang at 11 o'clock at night. I think it's the hospital to say we lost him. Instead, it's a relative calling me to say Uncle TH died. He had a sudden massive heart attack and died. We'll get into how narcissistic wives can talk you into doing two jobs again when you've already had a heart attack and told only to do one job, but you do two, so you have the heart attack. So when I met this person, Two out of the four most important men in my life died. One expected, so I had time to prepare. One completely unexpected. Also, my police and paramedic friends provided a beautiful blueprint to him. They knew that my marriage was cockapatuti and ending, so they gave him the keys to the kingdom. Brilliant woman, all kinds of great things about me, but she's been mistreated. She's been cheated on. She's been lied to. So she deserves to have somebody that's really into her and loving her. And so he knew not only the usual NPD behavior of mirroring and getting to know you, but he had a blueprint provided by well-meaning friends. They didn't wish me any harm. They
And
thought
Karen,
he was it.
in my situation, I provided the blueprint
Mm-hmm. We
because
all do.
the interrogation and the interest and the love bombing, they look deep into your eyes. They want to know everything
Yes.
about you. They want to know everything that makes you sad or makes you happy or makes you feel loved or makes you feel validated. And then they mirror or they provide all those things. And at the
Yes.
same time, so I was coming out of a self journey. I was already on a path of I want to know myself better. I want to know someone better. I want to know someone longer. I want to live for myself and spend my money the way I want to or the way I feel it should be spent. And man, I landed right in his lap. And then he
Mm-hmm.
provided the hook, the line, and the sinker. And that was all it took. The name of this company, Real Change, is not by accident because abusers reel you in and
Exactly.
change you. And it is up to you to provide change you want to see and be. Because otherwise, they'll not only steal who you are, but who you could be. So, again, the name of this is not by accident. The questions I ask are not by accident. It has all been due to what I've been through, what I've endured, and where it is I'm going as I help others, or at least do what I can to help another to avoid my path. I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I know you and I've had this discussion before, but spiritual narcissism, the fact that some will use religion to groom you, to mold you, to keep you, to control you. We know about cults, but how does it work inside of a relationship?
Well, the way the Bible is interpreted, and the man shall be the head of the household. They wear that one out, that you follow them. Now, the deal is they concentrate on that part of you as a woman following them, but they don't take care of that part about loving you as Christ loves the church. It's a one-way deal. It's used to control you, keep you in your place, keep you from asking too many questions, allowing them to just do whatever they want to do. And in many cases, it's run amok. Many of them have outside baby mamas and down low. A true somatic narcissist, they don't have a type. They do it with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Children and animals are not safe either. And I'm talking from personal experience. But these spiritual narcissists use the Bible to control you and reiterate your job to serve and to help and to build him up and be selfless. See, we have the interpretation that we're not supposed to put ourselves up there as a priority. And this is what gets us in trouble. Whether it's a narcissistic or any other abusive relationship, before you know it, you're actually engaged in idolatry. Because instead of thinking about God, everything you do, you're walking on eggshells, you're thinking about him or her for um, different people and for the guys that might be watching. You wind up putting all their needs first. You don't know that you're being groomed, passive aggressive behavior, silent treatment, sexual withholding, sexual abuse. They play every game in the book, but they use the Bible as the end all be all to keep you under control. And unfortunately, there are churches that go along with this program that you're supposed to work it out no matter what. They forget that Matthew 19 part. Now, you know he's with her, him, and this and that. You're not supposed to stay with that. We're talking about three-letter diseases that are fatal. We're talking about all kinds of STDs and, of course, sexually transmitted demons. This person is out with another person who's with 15 other people, and those 15 are with 15 other people. So you're wind up being taken advantage of by your own husband, who often, particularly NPDers, they don't have protected sex, and they come back and bring you cooties from God knows who, male and female, that they've been with. They enjoy something called triangulation. They know they were out having sex. They come home to their wives and they'll pull that Bible out. You're supposed to do your wifely duty. You're not supposed to withhold from me because the Bible says. And so many women and men are forced into these positions by someone who's using their very own belief in God and their desire to do right against them. This is why it's so important for you to read the Bible for yourself and not depend on some other person's interpretation, because they will twist it to mean whatever
And that's
they
what I
want
was
to
gonna
mean.
say. They're like a fundamentalist religion in their own right, because they will take one line, one verse, a
Mhm.
few words, and make it say what they would like for it to say. I know that each night that we had a really bad day, um, the ex narcissist in my life would say, "It's all right, baby. Let's just reset and regroup. Tomorrow is a new day.
Mhm.
We will
Yeah.
start over again." And if you have been raised in a religious background, forgiveness, going back
Hmm.
to reset and regroup and just start the new day with a new positive look and attitude, it all makes sense until you
Hmm.
realize, wait a minute, why do I need to reset and regroup? I didn't do anything, you know.
Exactly.
But the
And you're resetting and reusing over the same stuff over and over and over again. They'll pull that. The Bible says you're supposed to forgive, but it also says when a person is truly repentant and they stop that behavior. If you're going to go out and cheat or steal or lie and, oh, I'm sorry, and then do it again and again and again, how many times? Well, the Bible says you're supposed to forgive 7 times 77 a day. Yes, but that is for someone who is truly repentant. And
You
when you're
can't be
truly
crawling into
repentant,
people's beds.
you repent. Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Um, well, I also wanted to bring up, you also mentioned, I guess, that the cognitive dissonance, or the confusion, when you first figure out what's going on, you actually have a name for it. Um, then you go down the rabbit hole of research and knowledge and information, and you find all kinds of stuff, and you begin to realize maybe a little bit about what you're dealing with. Because, Karyn, in my case, there was never any physical violence toward me. There was some physical abuse indirectly because of all the trauma, the confusion, the crying, and all of that. But there was no physical violent component in my own relationship. So, can you give us a definition, a little bit of? I guess we kind of know, but how that manipulation begins and why there is that trauma. Got a Starbucks drink. Look at that. Um, the trauma bond, the way it goes from the love bombing to the devaluation, and how that creates the trauma bond, but then it also, as you discover more, creates the cognitive dissonance, which still is another piece of the trauma bond. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, the trauma bond, believe it or not, and please Google this, people. This is an actual real chemical addiction that comes from your very own brain. When they love bomb, you've got the feel good, the dopamine, the oxytocin. That's the bonding. The euphoria that happens because of this wonderful actual transaction ship is what it really is. But you feel so great. You're having all those chemicals. You're on a euphoric high during the love bomb. You think you have found your absolute end all be all. But eventually that mask slips. They can only keep it on for so long. Now, if money is involved, that is to say, you're providing the money and the housing, they'll keep it on a little bit longer, but you'll see the little slips and cracks, and you'll poo-poo it. You'll never mind it because of your forgiving nature and thinking, oh, they're just having a bad day. And generally, they've told you some sob story about their childhood or other relationships where everybody else was crazy or wrong or took advantage of them. Generally, is projection. They're describing all of their behavior with the person. So you want to be that different person. Now, when they do the negative things, the little snarky remarks, oh, that dress looks great on you. I think if you lost maybe 15 pounds or so, it would be even better. That's not a compliment. That's a put down. When they're flirting in public, when they cheat, when you catch them in lies, when they do turn on you with angry behavior, you're like, who is this person? I don't recognize this person. Then here comes the adrenaline. Here comes the cortisol. That roller coaster of your own body's chemicals, up and down, creates an actual chemical addiction. And unfortunately, it can get to the level where when the person is acting out, you can have a strange euphoria because you know they're going to act real good later. You're also walking on eggshells when they're
And
being
that's,
nice.
Karen, that's scary because, as Patricia Jones mentioned the other night, the body keeps the score.
Yes.
So as you're going up, the body's waiting to come down, and as you're going down, the body is waiting to go back up. It knows what's coming, and
Mm-hmm.
you can almost you get to the point where you can almost make it happen quickly
Mm-hmm.
by giving in or by saying or doing something that's going to make them mad so they'll get to the high point faster. It really, that's
Mm-hmm.
where the reactive abuse comes in, because
Yeah.
it's almost like I can end this by being a jerk, because I know as soon as I end it and I'm a jerk, he'll go back to the honeymoon part. And
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that's where so many people, including the victim, will blame themselves, because
Yeah.
you start to
I learned that I
engage
would
with
see
them.
things where I would get provoked into reacting, and he would literally go around the corner and come back with this great big smile, relaxed, as if like, who gave you the shot of Valium when you went around the corner into the bathroom? And it's because they have provoked this response. They're the one that's upset and tense. So what they do is provoke you so that now you're upset and tense, and it gives them the ability to choose to be something else, to have the calm and the confidence you just had. See, they cannot regulate their emotions, particularly narcissists and cluster Bs. They have no control of their emotions. So when they feel bad, they want to make others feel bad by either attacking them, putting them down, or building themselves up to be this end all, great all. I mean, backing up on the spiritual part, I will never forget the day when he announced to me that the only way I was going to get to heaven was through him. Excuse me? Wasn't that Jesus's job? Didn't he spend a little time on the cross?
Well, now,
And
they're a little delusional at times.
they are a lot delusional. I mean, this person actually would occasionally refer to himself as a god. Nose in the air, feeling of entitlement. And because he looked like the Caucasian version of Jesus, shoulder length, blonde hair, blue eyes, he would actually personify. A little kid one day pointed at him and said, "Oh, Daddy, that's Jesus." He, for years, still talked about that incident and would go all gooey and off in some euphoric world. I'm like, Earth 2, I won't even bother to call his name. But they live in an alternate reality. And before you know it, you're in one too, until you come to the conclusion that enough is enough. Unfortunately, that can go on for years, decades, especially for those of us with that old time thought of, oh, we're not supposed to get a divorce for better or, oh, that's one they love to throw. For better or for worse, in sickness and in health. So you're supposed to be with me no matter what. Wait, excuse me. You're drunk and went out and spent all of the rent money, and I'm supposed to praise you for this? You're hiding in the back room when the landlord, and you want me to sort it out? How many of you all out there find yourselves in the position where you're constantly cleaning up his mess or her mess? They use others to deal with the world because they are emotionally toddlers.
And you're
Anywhere
making
from
the phone
2 to
calls
7
to
years
solve
old.
you're making phone calls to solve the problem. You're trying to set up the appointments, and it's like you've gained a child rather than a boyfriend or a husband.
Exactly. And then they demand, I'm the man, I'm your man. Well, yeah, but why are you acting like a 5-year-old? And I'm talking right down to the point of him sticking his tongue out at me and in the middle of words doing the ears going, I can't hear you, I can't, and then calling me effing this and effing that, and with both hands. The first time it happened, I thought he was just kidding. And then I realized he's quite serious. He's actually emotionally a little kid. The terrible thing is that these men and women have grown body strength. And that's the scary part, because it's everywhere from physical violence to the emotional, the mental, the psychological, the financial, which is a big one. Totally irresponsible. It was years. I got rid of him in 2020, and I think it was 2022 before I realized, wait a minute. Most of the time, when we were in the transitional living shelter, I was paying the rent. I was getting the toothpaste and the dishwashing liquid and the toilet paper and the soap powder and all this stuff. Now he's getting a check, I'm getting a check, we're both on SSI. How is it that, and then Social Security, how is it that we're paid on the first and the third, he's broke on the second and the fourth, and I'm hearing, baby, could I have a couple of books? Could I have a couple of books? So he could get out there and buy a couple of beers, just a couple of beers. I am happy to say, and I should be
I'm
happy.
not laughing at you. I am laughing with you
I
because
know you.
I
Yes.
got paid once a month,
Mm-hmm.
and the badgering would start a few days before. Sorry, that's my finger in front of the TikTok camera. The badgering would start a few days before, and within a few days after I got paid, we would be broke. I was zooming food delivery like Uber. I was grading papers on the side for extra money. I started trying to sell jewelry. I started doing all kinds of things to make extra money. But it
Mm-hmm.
was never enough because his delusion was this grandiose business that was completely invested in by me, except for all the women were being portrayed as, they're a singer for the business and they're a this for the business and they're a this and I kept thinking to myself, who are they? Where did you meet them again? No story was ever clear. And I love
Mm-hmm.
when you say they go from being your soulmate to being your cellmate if you're not careful. Because I tell you what,
Exactly. Well,
they'll
you
either do you in or you'll be ready to do them in.
you missed one. Soulmate, then they become your roommate, and then you realize you've got a cellmate. I'm an independent person. I enjoy reading. I'm okay with me, myself. I don't have to talk every minute of every day. But 2020, for the first time in my life, even though we're in the same studio apartment day after day because of COVID, the lockdown is on, I realized that I felt something that was completely foreign to me: loneliness. I wasn't able to go to church because of COVID, wasn't able to get out other than essential what you need to do. And there was nothing to say to him. Plus, I'm learning on YouTube that I've got a hopeless reprobate, that all the prayer in the world is not going to change. And I'm seeing all of the things that he has been doing to me, the control and the manipulation, and I mean literally temper tantrums, stomping like a 4-year old across a concrete floor. That had to hurt his knees. Okay. um I'm watching all this stuff happen, and for just a few moments I felt, oh, this is what loneliness feels like. That other person is right there, but they're not there. There is no there. Most women and men that are married to narcissistic personalities and have children, you're actually a single parent.
And that's a
That's
mind
the
shift.
reality.
That's when you realize that, you know, you wanted a partner in life, but you've ended up to be a mama. You're paying for everything, you're doing everything, and yet at the end of the day, you're still alone, even in the presence of this other individual. And then the mind shift happens where it's like, I just want them to talk to me. And then the mind goes, I wish they would shut up and stop talking to
Oh
me.
yeah,
You just go from
I
one
love
to
silent treatment. I feel sorry for the ones who, oh, when he doesn't speak to me or she doesn't speak to me, I feel so bad. Me, I enjoyed the silent treatment. Oh God, he stopped talking for a little while. I mean, it's amazing, as my oldest son will say. Um, Before we end, I want to share a little part of the story that I have in the book that I'm writing. I moved out, or rather, we were evicted in 2018 because of the police coming all the time because this drunken individual wants to scream and yell. And for the first time in 30 years, a Guianan man moved in. It was a house with roommates in it. And those two had conflicts. For the first time in 30 years, I was now the N word. Okay, 1987, he would lose his mind. 2017, now I'm the N word. Okay, we move out. Only this time I'm decided I'm not going to my friend's parents' apartment. I'm tired of the police being called and I'm not going to be embarrassed there. I love to camp. Some women love five-star hotels. I love a tent by the ocean or in the forest. That's my idea of a nirvana vacation. So being in Hawaii, I'm over there at Hauula Beach Park, and they had a couple of private campgrounds, one that was right on a beach as well. I'm having a good time with the beach. Of course, he's getting drunk anyway, and the police wind up coming to the campground. I even had a stroke. And if it had not been for my oldest son feeling like something was wrong in California, calling me, and I'm talking complete gibberish, that's how I wound up getting to the hospital. But what I wanted to say was this: I literally was so sleep deprived, brain fog, brain damage, which mostly is reversible, thank God, that although in July I knew I was leaving him, went camping and went to a women's shelter, wound up back with him again because there were bed bugs. I was so worn out mentally and emotionally and sleep deprived, which was intentional on his part, that I forgot I was leaving him. I became so deeply dealing with memory loss. I would think a thought, and before I could get up to execute it, it was gone. I couldn't figure out for the life of me what was I going to do. Words I had known how to spell my entire life, I now can't spell. I remember having to look at my ID twice to remember my own name. So I'm 64 in December 2019, and I decide, you know, something's wrong with you. You better take yourself to Queens Hospital, go to the mental health ward, and say, you guys figure out what's wrong with me, if it's mental or if it's medical. But I know now I can't remember things I should be able to remember. I can't spell. All kinds of issues are happening, and I don't know why. Now, 30, almost 33 years at this point, I don't drink Diet Mountain Dew. He knew that. I realize now, learning about narcissism, that was intentional, that he would bring me a Diet Mountain Dew. In December, and I have my youngest son to thank for this, he comes back with a Diet Mountain Dew. Now, we're in a place where there's only one bus and it's too late to go back out and get another one. The store had been closed down across the street because of COVID. And I go, wow, I don't drink Diet Mountain Dew. That brought on a rage fest. You would have thought I killed his dog, took his money, poured all this beer out, slapped him, and cursed his mother the way he was raging. But what got my attention was the rage quit quickly into, well, you told your son to get off your lap with his skinny elbows and knees. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I adored my boys. There's no way I would have said to my youngest son, who at the time that he was talking about was 7 years old. And then I had the famous aha moment. I realized he was projecting, that he had said that to my son, unknowns to me, that woke me up to, wait a minute, I'm not crazy. I was leaving your raggedy behind. You're the one with all the issues and the problems, and I'm standing around paying all the bills. The very next day, divine download of a narcissistic video. And that's when I found out that I was being abused, because abuse is much more than hitting. So many people shy away from that. And I will never forget that moment of realizing I would have never said some words like that to my youngest son. He did. And of course, I wonder what else did he say to my children that I don't know about. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is the deal: do the assessment. The American Psychiatric Association has a book, I think it's Diagnostic DSM 5. I forget all the words, but
DSM.
look at the traits. See what you're dealing with. We cannot diagnose, but we can discern. If you're dealing with someone that's got these kinds of traits, all the love, all the prayer in the world is not going to change them. At 33 years, I wound up barricading the door. And what blew my mind was the next day I realized that was the exact 33rd anniversary of the day we met, August 14th. That was the beginning of my freedom. And now, besides the business plan that I have and education that I am pursuing, the other thing that is important to me, besides sharing the good news of the Lord Jesus Christ, is inspiring as many men and women, particularly those that have been there for decades. There is a beautiful, wonderful life waiting for you. There is peace and joy, something you have completely forgotten about because you've been living with nothing but drama, chaos, manufactured arguments. And for the younger ones, the Bible says for older women to teach the younger women. Well, not just women, but men too. Y'all don't stay 33 and 40 and 50 years with this individual. They are not going to get any better. They're only going to get worse and more infantile, and the abuse is simply going to deepen and damage your health. Fibromyalgia, migraines. There's even a stress-induced cancer, ulcers, major joint pains, cervical and back degeneration. I use a power chair now when I go out, like to Costco and Walmart, because I have tolerated so much abuse, it's seated in my back. Now, I've taken my life back. I've dropped 60 pounds. I've got a sister from another mister, out of you, Miss Tina, out of Shirley, out of Aunt Pat, and several others. I'm not going to call everybody's names, but I'm sticking to the ones that I know that there's no man around to give them any trouble. Because of, I'll give Clubhouse that one thing. It put us together, so we now have a sisterhood of us queens who know we are not crazy. We just didn't know this kind of evil lived on the planet. You know, when you go to a used car lot, you expect the salesman to pull some shyster stuff, but you don't expect that out of people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, start expecting it. Start watching people and listening to what they say and what they do, because the red flags are there. And I'll land that plane.
Well, and I just wanted to say, until I made my community on Clubhouse and realized that what was coming out of my mouth was coming out of so many other mouths, and that I wasn't the crazy one, it certainly helped me. And I want to say my divine intervention came when I started talking to old friends, but it was, when you're with a narcissist, lots of holidays get ruined, anniversaries, all those kinds of important dates, because God forbid you be included in the celebration. So they'll do anything to create some sort of diversion from the celebration. And for me, Karyn, October 11th, 2017 is when my epiphany occurred, which was on the ex's birthday. But I read a post online from a good friend of mine that I had been very active in racial justice world with, and she made
Mhm.
a post, and it was like she was with a community activist as well, but a narcissist. And when she made her post, it was my story on her page, and it was his
Yes.
birthday, and it was like, oh my goodness, like this is a
Mhm.
light bulb moment. Um, I want to say to everyone out there, this is Karyn. If you don't know her YouTube channel, it's Cluster B Free. She is Cluster B Free on Instagram, and she's on TikTok, and she's out there everywhere. Be sure to check out my personal page, the Real Change page. She's been commenting on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate that. It all helps with the algorithm. It helps to get the message out there. Um, Karyn will be back. Karyn will be back with Patricia Jones, who's over here in the chat. Um, Tomorrow night I've got Lakeisha Walker. So Lakeisha is a human trafficking survivor, human sex trafficking survivor, and she's going to talk a lot about the Romeo pimp and how narcissism works in the human sex trafficking work. And we have a guest from the community coming up on the 17th, and by that I talk about the journaling community. Patricia Jones will be our guest on the 18th. Patricia was in a 47-year marriage with a narcissist. The 19th is free right now. So if anybody out there wants to tell their story, contact me. The 19th is free right now. The 20th, we have a victims advocate that works with the local police department. She will be here. Takesha will be here on the 21st. Karyn and Pat will be here together because I was 50. I met a guy for 39 months, turned my life upside down. Karyn was in a 33-year marriage, and Patricia was in a 47-year marriage. And so, what does it look like to begin life again after 50? Almost 60. I'll be 60 next year. So, what does it look like to start life again when it's not what you thought it would be or where it would be at this point in your life? You're supposed to be settling down, not trying to start over again. But that's okay. We're starting over on our own terms now. We'll talk about that on the 23rd. So we've got some great guests coming up. I only have about 7 spots left. If you're interested, I've got basically the 19th, the 22nd, the 24th, the 25th, 27th, 28th, and 29th. That's it. If you're interested, by all means, message me. Starting in November, we will return to our weekly podcast. So please reach out if there's something you wish to share, wish to say. I would love to also maybe do a panel one night of several people. Maybe on the 29th, what were the highlights this month? What did you learn? What were your takeaways? That kind of thing. So if you're out there, thank you for the love and the likes. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you, Karyn, for being my sister from another mister and like no other from another mother. There it is. Sometimes I get it right. I'm so happy to have met you. You have been life-changing. For those of you that are in counseling, in therapy, I never want you to think that those degrees don't mean something. But at the same time, someone who's been through what we've been through can help with an insight far beyond what perhaps a regular run-of-the-mill therapist or counselor might be able to say or do. And I don't say that lightly because I never want to detract from someone's hard work and their degree. But if you are in counseling, make sure they know what trauma informed is, make sure they know what narcissism is, because it is key to helping you move forward. And you may not only need a counselor, you may also need a life coach, someone who can teach you the finer nuances of how to get your own life back on track. So Karyn has been instrumental in that regard for me. I really appreciate it. And we don't meet as often as we should. I'm one of those people, kind of stubborn, thinks I got it. Been listening to and watching Love Over Coffee, Voices Now Heard, platform and a podcast for the marginalized, the silenced, and the abused. And I want to say thank you. We'll see you back tomorrow night, probably. And we'll see you again on the 23rd. And she is a wealth of knowledge. So trust me, when her book comes out, I better get an autographed copy.
Of course, without a doubt.
Thank you so much, Karyn, for coming on. We really appreciate your presence and your knowledge. So thank you to everyone watching on the Real page. Thank you, everyone on TikTok. I'm going to go ahead and end the TikTok live now. So
Aloha.
take care, everyone. All right. I do not know why we have this echo tonight, because we haven't had one in the past, but that doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to to everyone over here on the Real Change page and in the groups and on YouTube. I really appreciate your being here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned tomorrow night, 9 p.m. We'll be back with Lakeisha Walker. So take care, everyone, and I'm going to end the stream. Good night.
Aloha.